murder of the dairy farmer Pehlu Khan. If all those accused in the murder have been acquitted, then there is frankly only one question. Just who did murder Pehlu Khan? Well, that really is the question. Is there going to be justice in this particular case? It's a case which has made international headlines in many cases, certainly headlines across the country. 2 years later, nobody knows who has murdered Pehlu Khan. And even if people do know that, evidently the criminal justice system is not strong enough to ensure justice. We're looking at this tonight. We'll be joined by KTS Tulsi, the Rajya Sabha MP and senior advocate of the Supreme Court in a moment from now. Aarti Jairath with me in the studio. Tehseen Poonawala, Lalita Kumaramangalam, the director of the India Foundation and member of the BJP with us, and Vikram Singh, the former Director General of Police in Uttar Pradesh with us as well. Mr. Singh, let me come to you first. This seemed to be an open and shut case. There was video which was available. There were confessions which were available. In your mind, do you believe that this is an incredible failure of the law and justice system in our country, that all 6 people who were accused stand acquitted?
Like all Indians, I am proud of my judiciary, like all of us. But having said that, there are disconcerting fault lines in the entire proceedings of the court, and which has led to the acquittal. What they say was a cardiac arrest. Cardiac arrests often do happen because of the beating that a person sustains. And I don't expect a person who's about to die to name all the accused. That may be the infirmity of the dying declaration, but that does not absolve the prosecution of its responsibility of making an infallible case in the face of this overwhelming evidence. In a scale of 1:10, 5 out of 10 would have been sufficient to nail the accused. And here in this case, from my experience, I can tell you it is more than 9.5. And if we've not been able to prove this beyond reasonable doubt, I think we did not do our homework well. Is it a bossed up investigation? Is it a complicit? Or is it a mixed up investigation to give benefit to the accused? I do hope that they go in appeal to the High Court and at least wash the sins and the blood of Pehlu Khan that is on their hands. Because it is not only me alone. Almost all the retired police officers, the senior ones, feel very strongly about it, that this was one of the very easy cases. An ordinary chowki in charge would have ensured that the forensic examination of the video clips would have been conducted. Why were they not conducted? I do hope an acquittal report is made out, responsibility fixed of the lapses and the lacunae in the entire prosecution, and those who are at fault are taken to task, and we do not repeat the mistakes in the High Court.
Tehseen, you had a point to make?
Yes, just a couple of things. Pehlu Khan's family, somebody I have known and I've helped out. I even got the youngest kid on NDTV where he was sitting on my lap and he spoke. And what I want to add to what the retired police officer said, Vikram Singh ji said, is this. About the video evidence, it's not just in the trial court. In the High Court, despite them being captured on video, paragraph 1 of the High Court, when it gave the 6th accused bail, that was the day I got them to NDTV studio, says, look, so what if they're caught on camera? Their mobile records say they are not there, so we cannot take this as evidence. This is what the High Court has said. They were threatened inside the High Court. I did this press conference at Digvijay Singh's house. The media carried it, nothing happened. And my last point that I want to make is that a dying declaration, according to Supreme Court judgment, is considered as evidence. The retired police officer Vikram Singh ji will know this. Also in the Honorable Justice Uday Lalit's judgment, apart from the mob lynching, which is my judgment, the Honorable Justice says that video evidence can be considered by a judge, even if it's not authenticated by a certifying agency, simply for the larger good. This is Honorable Uday Lalit's judgment with another Honorable Judge. Despite this, the Honorable Judge in the lower court chose to not take and use his discretion in not taking this video, something in 2017 we spoke about in front of the Delhi media and in the NDTV studio.
Mrs. Kumaramangalam, isn't it quite disgraceful? If you look at the sequence of events in this particular case, here was a man who was ferrying cattle, which he had apparently bought from a fair. He was going back to his village. He was assaulted by cow vigilantes, but the police first actually registered a case not against the mob but against him. They registered a complaint against Pehlu Khan and his sons under the Rajasthan Bovine Animal Prohibition of Slaughter and Regulation of Temporary Migration of Export, which begs the question, what is the priority here? A human life, or is it some sort of violation which he has done?
Vishnu, let me begin by saying quite categorically that these sort of lynchings are absolutely wrong, regardless of the reason behind that is given for the lynching or the people who've carried it out. Justice is something that is a constitutional right of every person in this country, regardless, and I mean regardless, full stop. Community, gender, whatever it may be, everybody has an equal right to justice, and it is a constitutional right. Now, from what I can make out, of course there seems to have been a miscarriage of justice, and I think the police, as the gentleman who spoke right in the first, the ex-policeman, the police have botched it up. I don't know what how it has been done, and I am not an expert lawyer to pass judgment on the on lawyers or on the courts, but it's very apparent that the evidence that was presented was not presented, either not presented properly or not presented fully, both of which are wrong. Now, I think that a re-investigation, I don't know, I mean, I hope that his family,
yeah, the Rajasthan government has asked for that. They're challenging it.
So will go to the upper court after this.
Yes, it will.
And that, well, that is a good thing, because then we at least can have some hope that this man who was killed in cold blood will get some justice. And I don't think, that anybody should have had this happen to them.
Okay.
Now, unfortunately, for too many reasons and in too many places, this seems to be a gross, I suppose you could call it a miscarriage of justice, because the police is not doing their job properly. And in this case, like the first speaker, I would like to say that if anybody in the police is found to have not done his job properly, then they should also be taken to task.
But ma'am, just in trying to understand what this is all a part of, in as much as we all condemn these murders when they take place, this is part of a trend when attacks on minorities have been horrific. It's Muslim men or families who've been targeted. Minorities have been targeted more than anybody else. If you look at Hate Crimes Watch and the detailed research which they've done, in 3 out of 4 incidents in 2018, the victims were minorities. Of 81 incidents in 2018 in which the religion of the victim was known, 60% of the attacks involved Muslim victims, 14% Christians. Is this not part of a deeper malaise that we need to target?
Vishnu, you're not going to like what I'm going to say now, and I don't think that the other panelists may approve, some of them at least, if not all. The fact is that hate crimes have been going on in India for a very long time. It's not just happening over the last few years, as many people would like to portray. And the fact also is that very often in the past, people from different religions, I do not want to say, I don't want to make this political or about religion, but since you have, I have to reply to what you said. Now, the fact is that in the past, many people from other religions have been targeted. And I don't know, perhaps it's wrong and perhaps it should not happen that way. But from what, as a lay person, I can see, it seems almost as if there is a backlash, which is wrong. It is wrong in any case. Like I said, regardless, it is wrong.
You believe that, no, ma'am, that's an interesting point. Are you suggesting that the attacks
or impossible to find any reason for?
Ma'am, are you suggesting that the attacks against minorities, specifically members of the Muslim community, which have been taking place in the last couple of years, is a backlash because of the attacks against members of the Hindu faith? Is that what you're suggesting? Ma'am, you use the word backlash. I'm trying to understand what you mean by that.
It could be. It could be. I'm not an expert, but it could be. And even if it is that, it is not correct. But unfortunately, as I said, mob frenzy is something that cannot be anticipated or controlled more often than not. And that is, well, it is really unfortunate.
But
it's
then,
not something that anybody likes to see.
While you condemn these attacks, and we all do when they take place in the loss of life, how does it help when you've got remarks by a series of BJP lawmakers which add, in a sense, fuel to the fire? Those who are dying without eating beef can go to Pakistan or Arab countries or any other part of the world where it's available. Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi. We won't remain silent if someone tries to kill our mother. He's talking about the cow. We are ready to kill and be killed. Sakshi Maharaj, a remark in 2015. We will hang those who kill cows. Raman Singh, BJP Chief Minister, Chhattisgarh, April 2017. I can go on and on. I must have about 9 or 10 of these examples. Isn't this language of violence what is dangerous?
Vishnu, I'm sure you can find enough examples. Vishnu, I'm sure you can find enough examples, but if we go into sort of tu mai mai, it's called in Hindi, I can find enough examples for people who made very incautious statements in the past who are not from the BJP, but from the other side of the fence.
I couldn't agree more.
Statements are
and we have a history of communal violence in this country, irrespective of the party. I'm just trying to analyze the current trends.
None of this is correct and should be made. They should be condemned. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
now,
quickly before I go
none
across
of this, I mean, I'm not saying that they were correct. I'm not saying they should have been done. And none of them makes things better. But unfortunately, these seem to happen in politics. So, I mean, you know, I wish they didn't. That's all I can say.
Two quick points. Lalita ma'am said that this may have happened in the past. Unfortunately, she said this was a may. She had no data to substantiate it, like we all have data, which was presented in the Honorable Supreme Court. Now, even if that happened in the past, there is no history.
I can give you one
may I please make my point? I never interrupted you. Kindly allow me the same liberty that I allowed you. It's not a fair on me.
There is data.
Mrs. Kumaramangalam, if you have data, I'll come to you after he finishes. Do share that data with us.
Yes, it's not
Finish your point.
Thank you. All these points were made in the Honorable Supreme Court. Now, there are two quick points that I want to see. One, no person that she can give me an example wrapped a tricolor on an accused, as Mahesh Sharma did on the accused in Akhlaq, or felicitated the lynchers as Jayant Sinha felicitated people who were convicted. And my last point, forget whether Hindus were killed, Muslims were killed, men were killed, women were killed, or transgenders were killed. The Honorable Supreme Court in my case said, and we presented the law, this is a brilliant law, ask the government to pass it. Ashok Gehlot and some governments have done it. Why doesn't the Honorable Prime Minister pass the law, a central law which state subjects can enact? Why don't you do it? The Supreme Court has asked you to do it. It said my law was excellent, the draft law. Just do it. Neither Hindu should die, no Muslim should die.
Do we need stronger legislation, Mrs. Kumaramangalam?
I'm not a lawyer, Vishnu. I can't comment on that. I'm not neither a constitutional nor a criminal lawyer. I'm not an expert in the law. So I'm not willing to get into that because I don't think I have, you know, enough expertise to be able to make a comment on that. Insofar as him wanting proof, everybody knows the statement that Rajiv Gandhi made when his mother died before the Sikh riots happened. Now, let's not go into the past unnecessarily, because the moment we politicize such issues, I don't think it helps, regardless. And I'm saying this, I said what I said this in my first statement.
Unfortunately, it is a political issue. These aren't straightforward attacks. It's couched in a certain...
No statements should be made that could inflame such feelings.
Okay.
And all of them are regrettable.
Mr. Singh, go ahead. Yes, sir.
My submission would be that the existing laws are sufficient to nail the criminals and the culprits, provided you have the will to do it. The fact remains that I could enumerate any number of sections, 147, 148, 149, 307, 302, 153A, 506 and so on, and the National Security Act subclause 2 public order, as also the Makoka, and I could rattle off any number of acts to you. But the point is, are we serious about apprehending the accused? We are not. When we go and garland the accused, we feed them with laddus. It sends a very negative signal to the law enforcement agencies and to the police department. Which way are they going to look? Revenge is a kind of wild justice, and two wrongs do not make one right. If a society, it's a very dangerous hypothesis to say, where do we begin retribution from? 1526, 1707, 1857? It's not. The job of the police and the law enforcement is to take action as per law and merits. What history and preconceived notions I may have, that has nothing to do with free and fair and transparent and prompt investigation.
Aarti, are you encouraged by the fact that in 2 states where there have been so many examples, there is an effort to bring in new laws? In Rajasthan, there is a Rajasthan Protection from Lynching Bill 2019. Mob lynching is cognizable, non-bailable and a non-compoundable offence. In Madhya Pradesh, there is a bill that seeks to amend certain subsections, make a minimum jail term of 6 months that could be extended to 1 year. In both of these states, the opposition argues that this is being done to appease minorities. Would you not look at this as a positive step which can actually get rid of some of this?
Look, I think the Supreme Court did talk, about the need for a specific anti-lynching law. I mean, yes, there are many laws to cover violence, murder, homicide and so on and so forth. But I think in the case of lynching, mob lynching, we don't have a specific law, and the Supreme Court talked of the need for it. But you know, even if you have this law, if your police is not up to the mark,
Or
if your
willing to
police
be,
is
yeah.
complicit,
Yeah.
if your police is just being lazy and slothful, you know, these laws are not going to help, right? And you know, one side is the police. For instance, in the case of the video, they use the video to arrest those men, but they never sent the video for forensic examination to authenticate it. Why did the court ask the police to do that? When the video was presented, why didn't the court tell the police, get it authenticated, send it for forensic examination? So I'm afraid there's been a failure on both sides. There's been a failure on the side of the court and a failure on the side of the police. So bringing in more and more stringent laws, you know, is just part of the problem. And the other thing I want to say, Vishnu, is that, you know, listen, there is a kind of majoritarian assertion. I mean, Lalita Kumaramangalam talked about hate crimes in the past. Yes, we have seen hate crimes. We've seen communal riots through decades. But there is a majoritarian assertion today which seems to be giving legitimacy to, you know, these kind of crimes. And that assertion is coming not just from ordinary people, but from lawmakers, from people who are in positions, you know, who should be providing leadership. If people like that are going to make statements which, you know, seem to justify an attack on the minorities, then where are we heading? You can make as many laws as you want to, but that legitimacy that is being given now to, you know,
Mrs.
to
Kumaramangalam, you want to
on
respond to that? The
minorities.
legitimacy being given to instances of attack like this by political leaders is part of a majoritarian message, which is very sad, which is deadly, in fact.
Vishnu, there are too many inflammatory statements made by people from all communities. I don't think it's fair to say that just the Hindus or the leaders of the Hindu community, because that's what Aarti Jairath meant, are the ones making
of the
these
BJP
statements.
actually,
There are statements
not the
made
Hindu
every
community.
other day
Sorry,
by people
I would
from
like to
other
correct you.
communities.
I'm talking about leaders of
Please-
the BJP, of
please
the
don't-
ruling dispensation, not,
No, but
not
let
the
me
Hindu
please finish.
community.
You can correct me when I'm
said.
done.
Well
It's
said,
not polite to interrupt. Let me finish.
That's right, but you must
can
not
always
misquote also.
respond after I
Sorry,
finish.
Lalita ji,
Fine,
don't
not the
misquote
Hindu
also.
community.
Don't
You want to
misquote.
talk about
Okay.
majoritarian stuff. I'm not misquoting. I'm not misquoting. If you would kindly stop interrupting, then I could reply. Otherwise, I'll just keep quiet.
Please go ahead.
No, ma'am, you can go ahead.
Thank
You don't
very
need to
much
keep
for
quiet.
that
Yes,
very
carry on.
kind
Yes.
permission. Now, this is not just about majoritarian versus, I wish you'd tell the other people also when they interrupt me, Vishnu. This is not just about majoritarian, various others. Everybody, there seem to be leaders from every community who make these inflammatory statements. Now, if you want to judge one community merely because we are greater in number, then I don't think that's also going to do anybody any good in such situations. As I keep saying, this is regardless of what community, gender, etc., etc. Leaders need to be responsible, whether it comes to issues like lynching or rape. I have said this for years on end, that when we politicize these issues, what happens is that ultimately the innocent people who are being brutalized or killed, etc., they're the ones who end up being the biggest losers.
Okay, Tehseen,
And
go ahead.
if we continue to do this, whether we are media people or whether we are philosophers or whether we are political commentators, etc., this will keep
But
continuing.
ma'am, how
is
can
a
this
trend
not
that
be
will
looked at
continuing.
from a political
Justice
prism? If
has
you
to
look
be
at these
equal
numbers,
for everybody.
if you look at
It
these
isn't at
statistics
the
and the
moment,
communities
and
which are being
that's
targeted,
a problem.
it's deeply problem. Go ahead, Tehseen, yes.
There are two quick points that I want to make. Vikram Singh ji said that there is no need for a new law. All these arguments were made before the Supreme Court in my case. Look, in our IPC or CRPC, there is no definition for the word lynching. The Honorable Home Minister said this last week or 2 weeks ago in Parliament. I have gone to the Parliamentary Committee and the Home Ministries Committee to explain what lynching is, and that is now being drafted in. So how do you tackle a crime for which there is no definition? But that's not what I want to go on. I want to go on to what Lalita ma'am said, and completely agree with Aarti ji. Please understand, what does majoritarianism mean? To not reduce this to religion. Majoritarianism means heterosexual men could be attacking somebody who's of a different sexual orientation. That is also minority. Majoritarianism means in Mumbai, when those who spoke Marathi attacked South Indians, they could have been Hindus, but they were still attacked. That linguistic minorities also exist. You could be a Hindu in Delhi from Karnataka, not knowing to speak Indian. You'd be a linguistic minority. The fact of the matter is, there is some amount in 2019. Lynching is the most brutal act, something done in 14th century Europe and done in 18th century US. Why are people today in the 21st century doing it, using modern methods like the latest gadgets to do it, filming it and getting away after it is being filmed? Isn't it something when tomorrow all of us celebrate Independence Day, we deeply think about? Because you know, Lalita ma'am, when you said you were making these comments were not made by Aarti, they were made by the Honorable Supreme Court that said that this is a democracy, it cannot be a mobocracy. Do you think the Honorable Supreme Court was also being anti-majority?
No, I don't think you can. I think that
exactly
you
my point.
may have quoted from the Supreme Court, but
exactly.
I'm not sure Lalita ji was actually referring to that.
I agree, but I'm just saying this cannot
I understand
be a definition.
your frustration
That's
at
not
this
what I
entire
said at
issue,
all. I
and I
didn't
understand
even
what the
mention
Supreme Court has said.
So
but
don't put words in my mouth.
Yeah.
I don't, ma'am.
But one sec, you made a larger. You made a larger point over here. I just want to wrap this debate out with one question to Mr. Singh. So, what appears to be absolutely bizarre in this case is the fact that there is video. We play this video out over and over again. It's absolutely clear video. Number one. Number two, there are confessions made by some of these killers, which has also not been accepted by the court. Is this a problem when video evidence is not accepted, and then invariably there is the bogey that, you know, this has all been manipulated video or it's fake video? Is there no way we can legally get it on this problem?
Vishnu, it is as simple as 2 + 2 is equal to being to 4. The Rajasthan Police Academy has a slogan, if you want peace, fight for justice. And here you have failed the process of justice step by step in a very concerted manner. A chowki in charge of the rank of a head constable could have done the basic and rudimentary investigation by incorporating these video clips and sending them for forensic and scientific examination. That was not done. The confession, we in the police are accused of manipulating confessions. Here you have an absolute 24-carat confessions. You did not incorporate it in the investigation. You did not compile the circumstantial evidence like a necklace as it is enjoined in the Evidence Act and produced before the court. You failed miserably. Was it a cumulative failure? Was it collusive failure? Or was it both rolled into one? I will stop at that. But the fact remains that because of soul searching and need, if you intend to atone for your sins, please put up your act before the High Court and ensure convictions. Otherwise, your credibility will take a beating of which you will not be able to get out.
We're also joined at this stage by Mr. KTS Tulsi, the senior Supreme Court lawyer. Mr. Tulsi, in light of what the Supreme Court has said earlier on this year, as far as lynchings are concerned, do you not believe that the inability of this court to prosecute people is a grave miscarriage of justice? And I'm not blaming the court necessarily. The fact that there is not enough evidence apparently which was admissible or good enough, doesn't this appear staged to you in this case?
You see, I believe that the criminal court is not a spectator, not a silent spectator to the charade where justice is by a very systematic plan defeated. You see, in this case, the doctor refused to sign the dying declaration.
Yes.
The magistrate did not sign the dying declaration. Why could the court not step in and call them as court witnesses? It's not that if the police gangs up with the accused, it doesn't mean that it's a foregone conclusion that we can't get justice. The court has to be proactive, and in this case, if everything is recorded on video, the court itself could have sent it for examination by the expert, and would have gotten the certificate if it was found to be in order.
Are you confident?
Most crucial evidence.
Yes. No, Mr. Tulsi, my question is, are you confident that if this goes to the High Court, which it will go, that there is still enough critical evidence on record, including people involved in this murder bragging on camera about their role and the role of others, do you not believe that there is still substantial possibility to get justice for the murder of Pehlu Khan?
Yes, of course. What happened in Best Bakery case? It was a similar kind of a judgment which was where there was an acquittal, and not only an acquittal by the trial court, acquittal by the High Court. And the Supreme Court said that courts can't be silent spectators to a charade of a conspiracy to bury the evidence. So the court said that there will be fresh investigation. The case was transferred, and the courts in Mumbai, they convicted them. So I really think that this is so blatant that the police is ganged up with the accused. They are actually prosecuting them under the Animal Protection Act, and they are not doing their job in ensuring that the truth is, unvarnished truth is produced before the court. Why is it that the doctor refuses to sign the dying declaration? How is it that the post-mortem would not give the cause of death? And it's all from the beginning to the end.
Right.
The investigation is dishonest. The prosecution is to only ensure the acquittal.
All right. Well, very strong, a very strong description of what you believe has taken place. Hopefully, now that the Rajasthan government is challenging this, things will be better here on, that there will actually be justice, even if it's not these people. Somebody's murdered Pehlu Khan. Who is that person? Who were those people? Will there be a fair investigation, particularly in light of what the Supreme Court has said this year on how lynching deaths need to stop? It is reflective of the worst in our society.